Wait, what the hell is this? Avellini choked, holding the box like it was a bomb. The room went silent. Even the Bluetooth speaker that had been playing some jazzy Christmas cover fizzled into dead air, as if it too had sensed something was wrong. Her fingers trembled. She glanced around the room, first at me, then at her father, then at her sister. Everyone else just stared. No one dared to breathe. It was ironic. She had started this entire show. She had waited until everyone was gathered, until the cinnamon rolls were half-eaten and the gift wrap was flying, until the champagne was poured and the fake smiles were painted on. And then, like she had been rehearsing it in front of a mirror for weeks, she got up, cleared her throat, and handed me the envelope. I wasn't supposed to ruin the moment. I was supposed to crumble, to cry, to nod along like a good little fool and accept the divorce papers like some gracious loser. She did not expect a response. Definitely not this one. I watched her read the first part again. Her eyes moved rapidly, left to right, down, then back again, her lips silently mouthing the words. Her face, which had been smug and perfectly composed just minutes earlier, was draining of color fast. "What, is this a joke?" she finally whispered. "Tell me this is a joke." Her mom set down her glass too hard. Her brother shifted on the couch like he was deciding whether to stand up or run. No one said a word. That was the best part. For once, her whole family was speechless. And me? I just smiled. Not smug. Not cruel. Just tired. "You wanted this morning to be memorable," I said quietly. "So I made sure it would be." She opened the second page. That's when she gasped. That's when her sister stood up. And that's when everything started to fall apart. She staggered back like she'd been slapped, the little gold box still open in her hand. The second page, the one she had just read, fluttered from her fingers and landed softly on the floor like a snowflake made of dynamite. Her dad leaned forward, squinting at it, but he didn't dare reach for it. Her sister, Olivia, hissed something I couldn't quite hear and grabbed Avellini's elbow, but she yanked herself free, eyes locked on me. "What did you do?" she asked, but her voice cracked halfway through. Not angry, not furious, just terrified. She looked down again, still gripping the edge of the box like it might explain itself. How did you even? "You handed me divorce papers," I said, almost conversationally. "On Christmas morning, in front of your family. I figured it was only fair I brought something to the table too." I could feel the sweat pooling under my arms, despite the calmness I tried to fake. My legs were shaking. My stomach was twisting itself into painful knots. This wasn't the kind of thing I do. I'm not bold. I'm not cold. I'm not the guy who makes a scene or plays smart. But when I found what I found 3 weeks ago, when the dots finally connected, I couldn't let it slide. Avellini looked back down at the velvet inside the box. And for a second, just one fleeting second, I actually felt bad for her. Because I knew that the exact moment her eyes hit that name, the printed receipt with the exact date, the time, the charge, and the hotel address, her carefully curated reality cracked. It wasn't just a receipt. It was the login credentials. It was the screenshots. It was the backup archive. And it was the private investigator's signature, notarized, time-stamped, and tucked behind the Christmas card I had designed myself. The one that read, "For better or worse." She had prepared a spectacle. Thought she'd be the one to humiliate me, strip me down in front of the people who always thought I wasn't good enough for her. She imagined me crushed, quiet, maybe even begging. That's why her dad had poured the wine early. That's why her brother had cued the camera. But I had rehearsed too. Not a speech, not a breakdown, just silence. Calculated, intentional silence. Because you can't compete with someone unraveling themselves. Avellini's mouth opened again, but no words came. Her mother finally stood, her bony fingers clenched around her champagne glass like she might throw it, but she didn't. Olivia looked between us, her eyes darting toward the tree, toward the doorway, toward the hall, as if there was still time to undo this. As if this moment wasn't already exploding in real time. "Tell me this isn't what it looks like," Avellini said, her voice lower now. "Please." But I didn't answer. I just picked up the envelope she gave me, the one labeled Dissolution of Marriage. I held it up. Then I nodded. "Accepted," I said. Then I placed it in the fireplace and watched it burn. The flames were slow at first, licking the corners of the thick legal paper like they weren't sure they had permission. Then came the burst, fast and hungry, curling the top edge where her name was printed in bold. Avellini K. Mercer. I stood there watching it burn, letting the silence stretch. No one moved. No one breathed. The heat from the fire brushed against my hand, but I didn't flinch. I wanted her to feel it. I wanted her to understand that this wasn't a reaction, it was a decision. Her father finally stood up, voice tight. "You think this is funny?" he snapped. I turned slowly. "Do I look like I'm laughing?" He took a step forward, like he thought he could intimidate me, but something in my face must have stopped him. Maybe it was the shaking. Maybe it was the fact that I hadn't raised my voice once. That's what they weren't used to. I had always been the quiet one. The pushover. The guy they tolerated because Avellini insisted I had a kind soul once upon a time. "You're making a scene," her mother whispered behind him, clutching her silk robe like I was about to attack someone with a carving knife. "No," I said, eyes still on Avellini. "I'm ending one." She hadn't moved since opening the box. The firelight danced across her face, washing out every hint of smugness that had painted it an hour ago. Her lips parted, closed, parted again. I could see her brain working, scrambling, trying to guess how much I knew, what I didn't know, what she might still have time to erase. But it was too late. I had been quiet for months, silent for weeks, observant for just long enough. "You followed me?" she finally asked, like that was the worst sin in the room. I almost laughed. "No," I said. "I followed the pattern." I could see Olivia flinch at that. She knew what it meant. She had covered for her sister before. The fake book club, the sudden conferences, the delayed flights, and no signal at the yoga retreat. Avellini was never as careful as she thought. People never are when they believe they'll never be questioned. I walked past the tree, stepping over discarded wrapping paper and glittery bows like I was walking through debris. At the side table, I poured myself a half glass of the cheap wine they always brought from some upstate vineyard they swore was exclusive. It tasted like metal. I drank it anyway. "Do you want to know what tipped me off?" I asked, not facing her. She didn't answer, so I kept going. "You told me you were going to your cousin's wedding in Oregon. But I saw the photos. That beach wasn't Oregon. It was Punta Mita." I reverse searched the horizon line in one of your friend's Instagram posts. GPS tagged the exact resort. I even called the hotel. I turned to face her again. "You didn't book a room under your name." Now she was pale. Truly pale. "You used his." A full beat passed. Then she whispered, "You don't understand." But I cut her off. "No, you don't understand." I did understand. That was the problem. I understood everything and still cooked you dinner. Still held you at night while you lied through your teeth. Still paid the rent, the credit cards, the therapy sessions you never actually went to. I understood you down to your last excuse. The room was shrinking now, the tension thick as velvet. No one dared defend her anymore. Not even her father. Because deep down, I think they all knew. Maybe they didn't know the details, but they felt it. The truth has a weight. And right now, it was crushing her. I put the glass down, calmly, gently, as if nothing had happened. As if this weren't the worst Christmas morning in the history of our marriage. Then I said, "You wanted a divorce." I pointed to the fireplace. "You got one." And I walked upstairs without another word, leaving her there, surrounded by tinsel, judgment, and the ashes of her own carefully timed betrayal. The door clicked shut behind me, but I could still feel them downstairs. Their stunned silence lingered like smoke, seeping up the stairs and clinging to the walls. I stood in the hallway for a moment, just breathing. My fingers were twitching, my chest tight. The house suddenly felt too quiet. Not peaceful quiet, not the good kind. The kind of silence that made your thoughts too loud. I went into our bedroom. Still ours, I guess, though everything inside now felt like evidence. Her perfume sat on the dresser, the same bottle she told me she lost 2 months ago, except this one wasn't the travel size I'd given her. This one was newer, fancier. A gift, maybe, or a souvenir. I didn't care anymore. I sat on the edge of the bed and finally let myself exhale. Not cry. I didn't even have that in me. Just exhale. A full-body sigh I'd been holding since October. That's when I heard her footsteps. Avellini didn't knock. She pushed the door open slowly like she was afraid it might explode. I didn't look at her. I just stared at the floorboards, watching the way the winter light slanted through the blinds, carving bars across the rug. She stepped inside, closing the door behind her. We were alone now. No more audience. No more family performance. Just the two of us. The couple that used to share inside jokes and cold pizza at midnight. The couple that now couldn't even share the same air without choking on it. I didn't want it to go this way, she said finally, her voice small. Hello. I turned to her, slowly. Then why did you script it? She flinched. Her hand grazed her wrist, the way it always did when she was spiraling, as if she could ground herself by gripping her own skin. But I didn't comfort her. Not this time. I was going to tell you, she whispered. When? After your family finished clapping? My voice cracked on the last word. I hated that. I didn't want to give her the satisfaction of hearing how badly she'd broken me. She walked over to the dresser and picked up the velvet box again. The gold foil wrapping had been torn clean down the side, violently, in panic. She opened it and stared at the contents again like they might change if she looked long enough. Did you hire someone to follow me? She asked, without turning. No, I said. But someone did. You just didn't know it. Her head snapped toward me. I continued. You really thought his wife wouldn't notice? She blinked. Once. Then again, slower. You talked to her? I stood up. The weight of the conversation was making me dizzy. She messaged me first. Said she found your earrings under their hotel room couch. Said she recognized you from the holiday party photos. Said she wanted to compare calendars. Her legs buckled. She gripped the dresser for balance. I didn't move to help her. She sent me screenshots. Audio. Even a voicemail. Said she's been waiting for proof for months, and you gave it to her gift wrapped. Your voice, telling him how easy I am to lie to, was the ribbon. Avellini pressed her palms to her face. I didn't mean for. Don't. I interrupted. Don't tell me you didn't mean for this. You picked Christmas. You involved your family. You thought I'd sit there and crumble so you could come out looking like some empowered saint escaping the emotionally distant husband. You planned this. For a long time, she said nothing. Then, quietly, I didn't know she'd find out. I nodded. But you were okay if I never did. She didn't respond. I walked to the closet and opened the door. Inside, my suitcase was already packed. Her eyes widened. Wait, where are you going? I grabbed the handle, pulled it out, zipped it the rest of the way. You gave me freedom this morning, I said calmly. So I'm taking it. You're just going to leave? Her voice cracked now, laced with disbelief, like she was the one being abandoned. I looked her in the eye, and for the first time since this entire charade began, I meant every syllable. No, Avellini, I said. You did. And I walked past her, out of the room, down the hall, down the stairs, never once looking back. I didn't slam the front door. I didn't even close it hard. I just stepped out into the cold, zipped my coat, and wheeled my suitcase down the icy porch stairs like I had done it 100 times before. It was only when I reached the bottom that I realized I had nowhere to go. No plan. No hotel booked. No backup apartment. Just the clothes in my bag and the boiling quiet in my chest. I stood on the sidewalk for a moment, staring at the frost-covered windshield of my car. Snowflakes drifted lazily through the morning air, the kind of slow, perfect snow that only falls on postcards and lies. And for a stupid, fleeting second, I thought maybe she would follow me out. Maybe she would cry. Maybe she would apologize. But she didn't. The house behind me stayed closed. Silent. As if nothing had happened. I threw my bag into the back seat and climbed into the driver's side, heart pounding harder now that I was finally alone. I didn't start the car right away. I just sat there gripping the wheel, wondering how everything could fall apart so elegantly. Then I remembered something. The security system. We had installed a smart system last summer, mostly because Avellini said she didn't feel safe when I worked late. Cameras in the front and back. Motion sensors. Audio-triggered recording. I hadn't looked at the app in months. Didn't even think about it. But it was still connected to my account. And I had just walked out the front door. It was probably still recording. I hesitated only a second before opening the app on my phone. The timeline blinked to life. The latest entry read, 10:12 a.m., audio detected. Living room. That was 3 minutes ago. I tapped it, and what I heard made my blood turn to ice. It was her voice, low, frantic. He knows. He burned the papers. I think he talked to Clara. I don't know how, but he knows everything. Someone else was in the room. A male voice. You said he'd never find out. You said it was clean. I didn't give her anything. Avellini snapped. She must have tracked him some other way. Then a pause. Then his voice again, cold, measured. Do you think he saw the email? Avellini didn't answer. Because if he saw that file, the man continued, we have a much bigger problem than you getting caught. My hands were trembling. I replayed the last 10 seconds. I didn't recognize the voice. It wasn't her brother. It wasn't her cousin. It wasn't anyone from her family. This wasn't just infidelity. This wasn't about sex or lies or betrayal. This was something else. I opened the next clip. 10:13 a.m. Audio detected. Living room. You said you deleted it, she hissed. I did. Off my end. But if he got to your email. I logged out after the last trip, she cut in. He doesn't have my password. Are you sure? The man asked. Silence. I asked you a question, Avellini. Are you sure? I ended the recording. My ears were ringing again, but not from emotion this time. From fear. There was something else they were hiding. Something I hadn't uncovered. And by the sound of it, it was bigger than an affair. Much bigger. I looked up at the house. From the outside, it looked just like any other picture-perfect suburban home. Wreath on the door. Smoke curling from the chimney. Decorations in the window. It looked innocent. But now I knew better. I had just walked away from a betrayal. But I might have stumbled into something far more dangerous. I should have driven away. I should have put the car in gear, picked a random freeway, and kept going until I ran out of gas or courage, whichever came first. But instead, I sat there frozen, staring at the screen, playing that audio over and over again. My wife hadn't just betrayed me. She hadn't just made a fool of me on Christmas morning. She was hiding something. Something serious. Something dangerous enough that a man I didn't even recognize was whispering about files and passwords and whether I'd seen something. I thought I was at the center of a story about infidelity. But now I wasn't so sure it was even about me anymore. 10 minutes passed before I moved. I didn't feel my hands on the steering wheel. I didn't feel the cold air seeping through the windows. All I felt was that awful, slow realization that I had only scratched the surface. That what I had thought was the end of the story, the dramatic finale with the fireplace and the suitcase and the divorce, was actually the beginning of something worse. I needed answers. Not revenge. Not closure. Truth. And for better or worse, the only place I could get them was the house I had just walked out of. So I went back in. I didn't knock. I didn't call out. The front door was still slightly ajar from where I'd left it. I slipped inside, quiet as I could, and listened. No voices. No footsteps. Just the dull hum of the heater and the occasional clink of a mug being set down. I moved down the hallway like a ghost, hugging the wall, past the coats, the framed wedding photo, the bookshelf she always forgot to dust. They weren't in the living room anymore. I heard a voice upstairs. Her voice. Muffled. Not shouting now. Nervous. He's not that stupid, okay? He figured out the beach photo from a shadow. He's obsessive. Then a man, lower, colder. You had one job. Keep him in the dark long enough for this to settle. This wasn't part of the plan, she hissed. No, it wasn't. I stepped onto the bottom stair. Slowly. Carefully. I knew the third step creaked. I'd learned that during our second winter in this house, when I tried to sneak up with hot chocolate while she was sick. I skipped it. My pulse thundered as I reached the top. The guest bedroom door was cracked open, light spilling out. I edged closer until I could see the back of her head, seated on the bed, her phone in one hand, the velvet box I gave her in the other. He stood by the window. I didn't recognize him. Late 30s, maybe 40. Trim suit. No tie. The kind of guy who didn't blink often. His presence filled the room like smoke. He wasn't angry. He wasn't panicking. He looked calm. Prepared. Like this had happened before. I couldn't hear everything. But I caught fragments. Already pulled the wires. Not traceable. Burn the drive. Avellini looked pale. Like she was already halfway out of her own body. What about him, she asked. The man shrugged. He'll leave. He always does. That's when my foot slipped. Not much. Just a soft shift of weight against the floorboard, a sound no one else would have noticed. But he did. The man snapped his head toward the door like a snake sensing heat. His eyes locked with mine. And in that moment, three things happened. Avellini gasped and dropped the box. The man reached into his coat. I ran. I didn't think. I didn't look back. I just bolted down the stairs, through the hallway, out the door. My suitcase was still in the back seat. My phone still in my pocket. I hit the ignition and peeled away from the curb like the road itself was on fire. I don't know if they followed me. I don't even know if they could. All I know is, the story wasn't about divorce anymore. And whatever they were involved in, I had just gotten too close. I didn't sleep that night. Not because I didn't try, but because every time I closed my eyes, I saw his face. That calm, surgical expression. The way he didn't flinch when our eyes met. The way his hand moved inside his coat, so smoothly, like this was just another routine cleanup. I couldn't stop replaying the moment, wondering what would have happened if I had hesitated for even one more second. Would he have pulled a gun? Would he have made it look like an accident? Was that even part of their plan? I parked in the lot of a 24-hour diner 2 towns over and stared through the windshield until the sky turned from black to gray. The world kept moving, like it didn't care that mine had cracked wide open. I watched a man in a Santa hat take out trash bags. A teenage girl on a smoke break stared blankly at her phone. Normal people. Normal problems. Mine were different now. Somewhere between panic and clarity, I remembered Avelini's old tablet. The one she used to use when we first moved in, before she switched everything to her work laptop. I knew she hadn't thrown it away. She kept everything. Cards from her college roommates, empty designer boxes, even receipts from restaurants we never went back to. And if she kept it, she probably forgot what was still saved on it. Or maybe she assumed I'd never think to look. By 7:45 a.m., I was back at the house. Not inside, not stupid. I parked 2 blocks away and walked through the neighbor's yard. I could see movement in the kitchen window, silhouettes shifting behind the blinds. She was still there. I didn't see him, but I wasn't taking chances. I went around to the back, behind the garage where the old tools were kept, and popped open the crawlspace vent. I had used that route once during a plumbing leak, and she never noticed. My hands were freezing. My knees scraped. But I didn't care. 15 minutes later, I was in the attic. Dust-covered. Breath tight. Listening. No one came upstairs. The tablet was in the drawer of the guest room dresser, wrapped in a faded knit scarf. She had hidden it, but not well enough. The charger was still in the same place. It took 10 minutes to boot up, another 5 to guess her passcode. The third try worked. The name of our dead cat, plus our old anniversary. Part of me hated how easy it was. And then I saw it. A folder on the home screen, tucked inside a decoy app she used to track her sleep patterns. November/beta/private. I opened it. And that's when I realized I didn't know my wife at all. There were PDFs, dozens. Legal language. Purchase orders. Some kind of trial authorization. Attached names I'd never seen. Company logos that didn't show up on Google. There were scans of passports, flagged emails, even a redacted memo titled, Distribution Escalation, Mitigation Plan. This wasn't personal. This wasn't just betrayal. This was something coordinated. Something buried. I was shaking again, but not from sadness this time. This was fear. Real fear. The kind that starts at your spine and spreads to your teeth. At the bottom of the folder was a single video file. No label. Just a timestamp. A week before the Oregon trip she never actually took. I pressed play. The screen flickered. And there she was, Avelini, sitting across from the same man I saw yesterday, in what looked like a hotel suite. They were mid-conversation, but the audio was muffled. I could make out fragments. He's just background noise. We clean the trail next week. Then it's done. Then laughter. Her laughter. The file cut off after 27 seconds. And I just sat there, staring at the screen, wondering who the hell I had married. I didn't go to the police. Not right away. I didn't leak the files. Didn't post the video. Didn't do what every part of me wanted to do in the heat of that moment. To destroy her the way she tried to destroy me. Because the truth is, after everything I saw, after everything I knew, the part that hurt the most wasn't the conspiracy, the lies, the surveillance, or the cold calculations behind my back. It was how small I had become in my own life. How little of myself I had protected. I sat there in that dusty attic with the tablet on my lap, and I made a decision, not out of fear, but out of clarity. I didn't want revenge. I didn't want headlines or drama or a front row seat to her collapse. I wanted something better. I wanted out, truly out. So I copied the files to an encrypted drive. I made backups. I sent one to an attorney I trusted from a past contract job, with clear instructions to act if anything happened to me. I wrote a statement, short, direct, factual. Then I erased the tablet, wrapped it back in the scarf, and put it exactly where I found it. I left the house the same way I came in. Quiet, invisible, controlled. No dramatic exits. No confrontations. No final word. I got in my car and drove for 8 hours straight, stopping only for gas and a sandwich I barely touched. I turned off my phone. Bought a prepaid one instead. Booked a small lakeside cabin 2 states over. Nothing fancy. Just wood, wind, and silence. And for the first time in years, maybe ever, I started to hear myself think again. The first week was hard. My body kept flinching at shadows, my mind expecting a knock at the door or a strange car to pull up. But nothing came. And slowly, the noise faded. A month later, I started writing again. Not stories about betrayal. Not revenge fantasies. Just thoughts. Pages and pages of them. About how I lost myself trying to be easy. How I ignored my instincts to keep the peace. How I gave her every excuse while denying myself even one. 2 months later, I found a job at a small local paper. Part-time. Modest pay. But it felt good. Like I was rebuilding something honest. 3 months in, I met someone. Her name's Alara. She owns the bookstore in town and always mispronounces author names on purpose just to see if I'll correct her. We haven't rushed anything. She doesn't know the full story yet. Not the attic, not the files, not the man in the suit. But she knows my laugh. And she says I have kind eyes. And for now, that's enough. As for Avellini, I never heard from her again. I don't know if she suspects I took the files. I don't know if she covered her tracks or if her little operation burned out quietly behind some corporate firewall. I don't even know if she's still living in that house with the fireplace and the creaky third step. But I do know this. She tried to hand me ruin on Christmas morning. And I walked away holding peace instead.